It's 5:01 and calling the meeting to order. Um, so for roll call, I'm gonna have everyone say a tiny bit more about them. Tara's our only one of the two new ones here, just because we have two new people, and I know there's been a little turnover recently, although most of you here have been here a little while now. I'm just gonna have everyone just say how long they've been, their name for roll call, how long they've been on the committee, and just a word or two, about who you are, why you're here, whatever. So I'm Carter. I've been on this committee for, actually, I should know the answer to that, a year and a half about, I guess, at this point. Been the chair for like a year at this point, I guess. Is that right, Christy? Um, and yeah, I'm a environmental scientist by training, sort of work in corporate nonprofit sustainability a little bit. So, yeah. Let's go to Gary. You're next on my list.
Okay, I'm Gary. I've been on the committee maybe 4 or 5 months at the most. I'm a retired firefighter from the city of Winston-Salem. I've always been interested in sustainability and just glad to be here.
Great. Christy Robinson, you're next on my list.
All right. Hey, I'm Christy Robinson. I've been on this committee for over 2 years. I'm probably the next to roll off. I'm currently the vice chair, and it looks like tonight one of you lucky dogs gets to be the next vice chair. I'm a public school teacher, and I have 3 kids, and I have been interested in sustainability for a long time. It's been really nice to be on this committee.
Awesome. Emily.
Hi, I'm Emily Mann. I'm a law student at Wake Forest, finishing up my 3rd year, and I'm also doing a master's in sustainability. So I'm interested in environmental law and government work. So that's kind of how I found out about the committee. And yeah, I'm basically just interested in like sustainable urban development issues.
Um, Tara, you're next on mine.
I'm Sarah Brown. This is my first meeting, and I'm really excited to be part of this committee. Um, my day job is I work leading corporate sustainability for publicly traded financial services technology company, and I'm really excited to be able to serve the city and stuff.
Awesome. Tara, your microphone is a little like, I heard most of it, but it's a little rumbly. I don't know if it's you or us, but just FYI. Christy, the other Christy Campbell, newer Christy, soon to be only Christy.
Wrong button. I know I'm sad. Hi guys, I'm Christy Campbell. I've been on the committee for a few months. Kind of started right before my actual term started, which is I think this is my first official month for my term. I am also an educator, like the other Christy. I'm finishing up 30 as an educator. I'm very interested in the environment because I have 2 kids that have to live in the environment around our home and just wherever they decide to dwell as adults. So I have an adult child and a child that's in the 10th grade and a husband and a couple of fur babies at the house. So I'm just glad to be a part of the committee and all the wonderful things that I've learned so far.
Awesome. Thanks. And Jose, I think you're last. Well, I think you're last, but go ahead, Jose.
Yeah, so Jose Salcedo. My day job, I work as a community organizer for a local environmental nonprofit called Power Up North Carolina. We work with community to, help, we collaborate and work with community to help, find solutions to the environmental issues that they face on a daily basis. So a lot of campaign work, community work, canvassing, organizing, stuff like that. And yeah, just served on this committee to join this committee to, just further the impact of, sustainability within Winston-Salem.
Awesome. And is there anyone else who's on the committee who's here that I haven't captured? I know that WSTV is somebody like sort of happening with the tech. Is whoever the YouTube is that a committee member or is that some behind the scenes person?
Sure.
people know
My
you?
name's Lindsay Smith. I'm the energy manager for the city of Winston-Salem, and you guys were talking about how long you'd been on the committee. Well, I've been with the city for about 20 years. I've met a number of times with the original sustainability committee that the city had back in maybe 13, 14 years ago, and also worked on the original greenhouse gas emissions reports. And I'm going to be talking a little bit about energy use in the buildings. And as I was putting it together, I was thinking Carter sat in my office almost 2 years ago to the
Yeah.
day, and I got a preview of this presentation. So
Presumably with updated numbers, though. Yeah, definitely. Awesome. Well, yeah, looking forward to hearing that, Lindsay. Before that, so we need to approve the meeting minutes from May. If there are any questions or comments on the minutes, I'd welcome those. But I'll give a moment for that. But otherwise, if there's a motion to approve the minutes.
I'll motion.
Christy motioned. Is there a second?
Second.
And Gary seconds.
Jose second.
Oh, Jose, sorry. Um, all those in favor? Aye.
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 Gary,
Aye.
aye. Christy, Emily, I presume everybody. Any opposed? This is usually the more useful way. No? Okay, so we approved the meeting minutes from May. The next order of business, as Christy already previewed, is to elect a vice chair. So Christy Robinson, who's been on this committee longer than me, is up at her term limit. So as soon as the city sort of nominates a new person for the committee to replace her seat, she will be rolling off. And so Shailene and I thought it'd be good to go ahead and start the process of electing a vice chair. The way I don't even actually remember how I became chair, if I'm being honest. The more I think about this, it happened really fast. But if anyone wants to, maybe we start. Christy, do you want to just give an overview of what you sort of perceive
Yeah.
it's vice chair does, and or sort of what the responsibility might be?
I guess technically if Carter can't run the meeting, then I've run the meeting a couple times. That's probably the easiest part. I think the big thing is if you're the vice chair, it'd be really nice for you to be able to dedicate some time outside of this meeting to meet with the vice chair, meet with Dr. Miller. And since I've been on this committee, I've had like one project that I've been working on. So I know all of us can't do everything. We're all super busy. But if you want to be vice chair, it's not a ton of extra work, but I think like at least once a month, dedicate time outside of this committee meeting to be able to focus on something. So for this past time, I was doing the City of Winston-Salem Awards, but then Carter and I worked for a while before this on a proposition to the city council to reduce their energy use. That ended up being unsuccessful in the end, but it took some time and some research and some meetings that we had. So I think it's not a huge lift, but I think it would be important to know that you'd want to have a little extra time to dedicate to it. Carter, do you have anything to add about that?
Yeah, I think that's right. That just a little bit, it's sort of taking a half step up in responsibility, but it's not a dramatic time change. I mean, everyone sort of can devote their own amount of time to it. But yeah, it involves at minimum leading meetings when I'm not here, but more than that, sort of helping sculpt a little bit more what actually happens. Working with Shailene a little bit more. Yeah, but otherwise, yeah, I mean, it's sort of a step up in that regard, but not too bad. Like I would say the time commitment, like you said, is not unreasonably different, perhaps. So, I'm happy to open the floor for questions for Christy or I, as the two longest serving people in there. or Jose is the next at this point, I think. Or if anyone has a nomination, it sort of goes through the same process where somebody could nominate and somebody else could second, and then we would vote. Otherwise, yeah, I'll open the floor.
I think, just sorry to hop on one more thing. I
Yeah.
think what's interesting and fortunate about this committee is that we are relatively new, forming again. The committee was going strong a number of years ago, and the sustainability director had there was some clashing between the committee and the city sustainability director, and so we've really had to reform. And if you were the vice chair, you would have some, if like energy is something you want to focus on, or composting is something, or green spaces and native plants like that would be something. If you have a pet project or something that you're interested in, that would really be helpful. Jose?
I was gonna ask, if, and sometimes I forget, with the bunch of emails that we have or that I get on my work email, but do we have, bylaws that state what the roles and responsibilities are for the chair, vice chair, stuff like that? And if we don't, do we need to make some? Just a question
Yeah, it's a great
in
question.
regards to that.
It's a great question, and I'm sort of laughed a little bit only because I have no idea. I mean, there's definitely bylaws. So let me back up. There's bylaws that sort of govern these city committees, and maybe there's some language in that, but very broadly defined. I mean, from
Yeah,
personal
nothing
experience,
that I've seen that's been specific to sustainability.
or that's like
Okay.
from what Christy or I have described. I mean, the expectation is like a vice president in a sense of like
Yeah,
if the main person's not there, you sort of fill the role
correct.
as best you can. Yeah.
But I love
Okay.
the idea of making them more specific. We've changed the bylaws a little bit since we've been on the committee. So I
Yeah.
think that's not outside the realm of possibilities.
Yeah. The only reason I was asking is because, like, I know I serve as vice president for my chapter in the fraternity that I'm in for the alumni chapter, and we have bylaws that states like the roles and responsibilities of president, vice president, any other officers. So I know that, especially with this being everybody's new, especially if we want this to be sustainable as like a committee going forward, just kind of having those in the bylaws if they aren't already in there, just to kind of help guide whoever may come to terms after us. Just a thought process. Just thought, yeah.
Yeah, that's not a bad idea so I'll say when I became chair, whatever that was again, like a year ago, and Christy became vice chair at the same time, basically.
Yeah.
It wasn't like Shailene then like presented us with some formal rules of what we need to do. I don't remember.
Robert's rules were not imposed.
Yeah.
Mhm.
But I like the idea of formalizing some sort of shared information that gets passed down over time, especially with, like you said, I mean, both Tara and Ron, who's not here, are new now. Christy's about to roll off as well. And then at least 2 or 3 other people are within the last sort of 3 to 6 months. I like that idea to create some institutional knowledge, but
Mhm.
Are there other questions or nominations? I also would welcome the idea that like Shailene and I put it on this meeting, but it's sort of new in this moment for a lot of you. We haven't like primed you all with think about if somebody wanted to be vice chair. So I'd be happy to sort of push any actual nominations to the next meeting if no one has a suggestion, and allow people to think it over or talk with each other or whatever it may be. But if somebody has a nomination now, I'd also welcome that.
I mean, I'll nominate myself. I think that you would all be like great at it, but it's something that I would personally be interested in if like no one else wants to or whatever. I know I haven't been on it as long as other people, but I think I would be good at it. I do have some ideas for projects and stuff. I think that we could maybe partner with like the law school or something and do some projects with them. I do have some ideas that I could maybe write up a little brief for or something.
Yeah, thanks, Emily.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that as well. I mean, I, I think you'd be great at it, Emily, first of all. I mean, half of it is not necessarily having the best ideas. Half of it is just being available and being present, like Christy said, a little bit outside of this. I mean, contributing ideas in that moment, of course, but and you've done that to this point, you know, with several things, the awards and now for the summer intern, for example, as well. So there's a motion. Although I'm reflecting, I assume somebody can nominate themselves, right, Chrissy?
Oh, well, I will nominate Emily.
Okay. Christy nominates Emily.
Is there anyone else that's interested in nominating,
Yeah.
serving in the position?
I second.
Christy, did you say you second? Or did somebody?
I did, but Jose has raised his hand, so let's hear from him.
Oh. Yeah, I was gonna nominate myself as well.
Okay.
Yeah.
Great. No, that's awesome. So this is the first time I've had to deal with this.
Do we want to do what you said before, Carter, is maybe come up with like 3 sentences to share next time and we could have a vote at the next meeting?
Yeah, I like that idea. I mean, there's no reason it needs to be like abrupt and immediate, especially with like Tara being new to like make a decision about this. I mean, I'm going to be available this meeting, obviously, and next. So there's no like hyper, or in the summer's slower anyway. So there's no hyper urgency around it. So yeah, why don't Jose and Emily, yeah, why don't we put together a few, I like that idea, like a short little few sentences about yourself and sort of what you want. And then next meeting we can do some type of voting. It'll be good for Shailene to be here for that as well. Not that Lindsay isn't great, but Shailene's mostly the one involved. So how does that sound to everyone?
Sounds good.
I think that's a great idea.
Yeah. Awesome. Well,
I like that.
I really appreciate both of you being willing to step up and do that too. I started this because I was concerned no one was going to want to do. So the fact that we have 2 is like, you know, amazing in and of itself. So cool. So next meeting we'll talk a little bit more about that. All right. Now we're to you, Lindsay. So with Lindsay's update, since Shailene wasn't going to be here, many of you know that a few months ago, Shailene presented a sustainability and what is it called? And sustainable energy plan, an energy plan of some kind to council. And since Lindsay's sort of like the pro, like you said, 2 decades in the weeds of the energy data, I thought it might be good in this meeting, since he was going to be staffing it, for him to give us a little bit of an overview of energy use, but also a little bit about that plan. So over to you, Lindsay.
Okay, well, thanks a lot. And I will need y'all's help in a minute or so because I've never actually presented a PowerPoint presentation via Teams. So if you can't see what's on the screen, I want you to tell me and we'll see if we can get it fixed. I did want to give a little brief update on city council stuff. Carter actually attended the meeting the other night. It wouldn't be new to him, but basically the city of Winston-Salem's budget each year runs from July 1st to June 30th, which is their fiscal year. So we are ending fiscal year 25 shortly, and we'll be starting fiscal year 26 on July 1st. So part of the process is that the city puts together a budget for next year, and they've had a number of meetings where they've discussed priorities and what should be in the budget, should not be in the budget. This past Monday, they had a public hearing on the budget, and there were several people, including Carter, who spoke specifically about sustainability. However, I would encourage you guys, if you've never looked at any of the city council meetings, they are all available on the city's website. You just go to the date of the meeting, which obviously Monday's was June 2nd. You click on it, and then you can see the agenda, but you can also see the actual video, and you can click on the agenda and it will take you right to that point in the video. Probably the most interesting thing, I suspect Carter was a little surprised, was the city manager, as part of his comments, he did take a few minutes to talk about sustainability, because they had received several calls from various folks in the community concerned about city council's sustainability priorities going forward. So he did talk, and I was going to mention some of the things that he said. He did remind everyone that there is a capital project that exists for $500,000 to be used for sustainable efforts, and we have spent about $75,000 of that to date. We do have some things coming up, and I'll talk about a couple of those. He mentioned specifically that we do have a solar feasibility study that we are going to contract, most likely with one of the known solar PV companies in the state, and they're going to provide some rough information on each of our buildings, and then they will provide some more detailed information on probably one or two buildings, and then more if we pay them for them, which is okay. And city manager specifically commented that also, as part of this year's budget, they are evaluating many of the city's buildings and trying to prioritize when work will take place on the buildings going forward. And it's certainly a priority among management and city council to include sustainability needs, if you will, in the buildings when they are modernized. I will say, as an example, over the years, there's been stuff that's been done, and we've said, hey, you need to be doing this while you're fixing the roof or remodeling or what have you, and it was a little more than the budget would allow, so sometimes didn't get done. For those of you that don't know, we've basically had a complete change in city management the past year, mainly because of some retirements, some changes in city councils. So I think there is a little bit different focus going forward. City manager also commented about the LED streetlight project, which I'll talk about a little bit. And then he also commented that all the light vehicles that we will be purchasing over the next years, there will be options to purchase those as hybrids with a review of EVs. The city has purchased a number of hybrids the past few years, and I believe within a month or so, we'll have either 10 or 11 electric vehicles on the road. And I say within a month or so, we've actually got a couple of them that have just arrived, but haven't been assigned to the departments yet. It just takes some time.
Yeah, Lindsay,
yes.
Yeah, on the council meeting, Jose was there also. I wouldn't mind sharing a few thoughts on my end, and maybe
that's fine.
If Jose has a few other thoughts on the council meeting. So again, as Lindsay mentioned, there were quite a few emails and or calls to council members that was sort of spurred by a local nonprofit, let me say it like that. As well, quite a few people, including myself, including PEA, including a lot of individual citizens spoke. I mean, of the 20-some people who spoke on Monday night, I don't know, probably a third of them were speaking about sustainability. There were probably, maybe 6, 7, I can't remember exactly. So it was quite a strong showing, and like Lindsay said, the city manager, Pat Pate, sort of because of those messages they'd gotten through the week, talked to council before even the public comment period about sustainability action. He mentioned the $500,000 sustainability budget that only $75,000 had been spent from. that's both accurate and a little misleading because what's actually happened, that $500,000 capital budget exists every 2 years. And the past year, it's been quite difficult for the sustainability office to actually spend it on projects because of other barriers. But also this year was supposed to be a year it was renewed and it's been cut entirely. So for the next 2 years, the $500,000 that should have been there is now gone, which is why there was such a strong response of the sustainability community. He's accurate. The solar feasibility study of the buildings is planned for this next year, which is positive. But mostly, I mean, my argument, everyone had sort of a different angle to their argument, but the Duke Energy lights is a big deal, like Lindsay's going to talk about. But by and large, we still are sort of far away from the energy goals that the council members set for themselves and 5 years ago now. So that was why there was another reason that there was sort of a large speak or a large sort of request of people. So Jose, no need to add anything if you don't want to, but if you have any other comments of your perspective of the council meeting, I'm happy to hear. I'd love to hear those as well.
Yeah, no, I mean everything that you mentioned is pretty much the same that I got. I know I was there not only as a community leader, but also as a representative of the committee. So, you know, but yeah, I don't have anything to add. Everything you mentioned, pretty spot on.
Awesome. And as far as like what actually it all means, you know, by and large, I don't know that us doing anything sort of will change the budget for this next fiscal year. But I mean, I'm going to speak about this a little bit later at the end, but I think that there's a moment where it needs to be reminded of the importance of what this committee represents, both to council, but to the manager's office as well. And so I think we laid some groundwork for that. And Lindsay mentioned the options about like all new light vehicles have the option to purchase hybrid, for example. You know, it's just in the past year where the police department purchased, I don't even remember how many vehicles, several dozen, with no sort of consideration or oversight or involvement of consideration and sustainability. So there's still a lot of work to be done in the space and sort of making sustainability process be sort of infused through a lot of these other departments. So, which is something that Shailene's prioritized, but you know, it's still a long journey. So, are there any questions about the council meeting?
I just wanted to say thank you, Carter, for being there, and Jose, thank you very much. It's hard to do the time of it. The meeting is hard right at the end of the workday, and it means a lot that you guys did that. And I think it would still be appropriate since things aren't finalized. I was able to write city council and like an email, which it sounds like they heard, you know, because with people speaking in with that. So if the members of this committee have not done so yet, I think that would be definitely your own representative to write and just reinforce that you still want sustainability prioritized in the budget, and also to the other ones, just the other ones that aren't in your and don't represent you. I think that is powerful, and they appreciate hearing from us in particular.
So I did have a question, because I was kind of wondering about this on Monday. But like, you know, if we are to reach out, like, you know, me, I serve as like a community leader, but also I serve on this committee. So I guess, you know, if like I was to send an email, or I don't know, I think if I remember correctly from what they reported in city council is that they're having another meeting. I think there's 2 city council meetings left until the budget gets approved by the city council, if I'm not mistaken. Or did I misinterpret the information?
The council will meet this upcoming Monday, which is the 9th. And they call it it's really a committee meeting, but it's a committee of the whole. So it's all of the council members, and they will discuss any final adjustments to the budget that they might make. It's not set up as a public hearing.
Okay.
But
it's a public meeting, meaning like you can listen online or go attend the meeting.
Yeah,
but
you can attend.
yeah.
And
And
Jose, as
then,
far as, oh, sorry, go ahead.
well, and then I was just going to say, following that, there will be one other meeting, which will be the council meeting, and they will vote to approve the budget or not. And generally, by the time they get to that point,
Yeah.
Everything's finalized. Yeah.
yes.
Okay.
And Jose, as far as when you were asking like how to address it, like I also run an organization and I'm on this committee and I'm a citizen, and like I think probably most of the people on this committee, I just list all my things, and you're always writing as an individual. Like you don't write like saying I'm representing the city
Mhm.
sustainability committee, but you can say as a member of the sustainability and then list your other credentials. I think it's important to just put them all on there, but just say as a member, not as like a representative.
Right. Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks for writing.
Awesome. Are there any other questions? Otherwise, Lindsay can sort of pivot. We can pivot to the overview of the energy use and energy plan.
All right. Now, can y'all see the agenda I have up here?
What we see is last month's
Oh, okay, the minutes.
minutes. Yeah.
Okay, so if I do that, you've got the title page and you guys can see that.
Yep. Yep.
Okay. I was not 100% sure, but anyway, like I said, I'm Lindsay Smith, the energy manager. And one thing I like to do whenever I talk about energy is give a little minute or so briefing on, what is greenhouse gas. I think that a lot of people don't truly know exactly what it is, but for most city, town, county governments, there are only 4 ways that we produce greenhouse gas, and it's primarily a measure of carbon dioxide. They sometimes will call it carbon dioxide equivalent to take into account some other greenhouse gases that are included, such as methane or one of the NOx's. But basically, you have the burning of vehicle fuel, diesel fuel, gasoline, propane, natural gas, and it's also used in emergency generators, heavy equipment, push mowers, chainsaws. It's pretty much just each department gets it out of the pump and they use it however they use it. For the purposes of rough calculations, and I like to kind of keep things in generally round numbers, about 20 pounds per gallon of fuel that's burned is the amount of CO2 or greenhouse gas that's emitted. So every 100 gallons is 2,000 pounds. That's 1 ton. Sometimes people will talk in terms of metric tons. That's a similar number. But anyway, so like I said, each 100 gallons you burn of fuel, that's a ton of greenhouse gas or carbon dioxide that's emitted. The next way we emit greenhouse gas is by using natural gas in our facilities. Within our buildings, it's primarily used for space heating, and we do have gas water heaters in some buildings. A few of the fire stations have natural gas cooktops. We do use it in a few generators, but not many. And then our water treatment operations use it as part of their process, and I'm going to talk about that a little bit in a minute. But we're burning natural gas. It's being exhausted. Again, something around 12 pounds per therm is what's emitted. And when you get your gas bill, it'll tell you how many therms you used in your house, and they multiply it. It's gotten to be about $1.50 a therm for residential folks, but however many therms, multiply it by 12. That's how many pounds you release, divided by 2,000 to figure out how many tons. The next way we emit greenhouse gas is by how much electricity we use. Now, we don't make the electricity. It all comes from Duke Energy. So we use whatever multiplier they publish. If you go back and look at our 2000 original greenhouse gas emissions report in 2008, we did it a little differently. I can explain why at some other time, but Duke is in their sustainability reports, they say 0.78 pounds of CO2 are emitted per kilowatt hour. So again, we just take the total kilowatt hours that we purchase, multiply it times that multiplier. That's how many pounds were caused to have been emitted in the atmosphere by us. If every time Duke replaces a coal-fired power plant with a natural gas-fired power plant, their emissions factor goes down. If they replace a coal-fired and or natural gas plant with a nuclear plant, the emissions factor goes down further, or a whole lot of solar PV. But it's basically based on their fuel mix is where that number comes from. One other place that we accounted for in our first report, but it was not a large amount, but it's the decomposition of organic waste that occurs at our sewage treatment plants and up at the landfill. Typically, when it's decomposing, yes, it's methane, but we pretty much capture a very, very large percentage of that methane, and we use it in secondary processes, and it's used, once it's used, it is burned basically, so it becomes carbon dioxide. But other than that, there's not many ways that governmental entities release greenhouse gas emissions. And I've looked at a bunch of reports, and they're oftentimes no different than ours. A lot of times it's how the multiplier is calculated. But anyway.
Mr. Smith?
Yes.
Tara Brown has a question. Her mic isn't working, but she wants to know if the city measures just scope 1 and 2 or scope 3 as well.
Well, historically, we never even considered the words scope 1, scope 2, scope 3. Of course, they are relatively new. We pretty much just looked at these 4 and we just called them all scope 1. I only threw scope 2 in there because as you guys are informed and you've heard of scope 2. Scope 3, we do not do anything with that at this point. Some corporate accounting for various reasons is required to account for it. But as far as city of Winston-Salem, there's, and I bet most governmentals, there has not been a real effort to account for scope 3, which that's basically if you purchase something from a vendor, how much greenhouse gas went into the making of that product. So it's not anything you have anything to do with, but the people you're purchasing from, they're accounting for it. So, all right. So I like to go through these. Come on. Let me see if I can just get to the next one. I'm rolling my mouse and it wants to go down too far. There we go. Anyway, this is just a quick overview of our vehicle fuel. Every year we've looked at it, it's always about the same. Winston-Salem Transit, it's at 31% of it. Well, we purchase about 2 million gallons of fuel every year. Winston-Salem Transit, the police and sanitation and utilities are the largest percentages of those each year. Winston-Salem Transit, they do use the big green buses are all hybrids. As hybrids, they get 5 miles per gallon. Before they were hybrids, they got about 3 miles per gallon of gas. So, it was quite an improvement, but they don't get a ton of, their mileage per gallon's not super high, but sanitation, there is a little more to that than just picking up trash because they do pick up leaves, limbs, bulky items, dead animals, and they have to drive to the landfill every day. Everything else on the right side, these are just the general departments within the city, and everything else kind of lumped together. I'm going to talk about these words taxpayer funded and utilities funded a little bit more on the next slide. But anyway, the next thing is natural gas. So natural, and actually, let me say on the GHG for fuel, you can see that was, we'll say over 20,000 tons. And it's just, some of these numbers are just relative, because when you look at natural gas, it's 8,300 tons, but you see here, utilities uses about 3/4 of all the natural gas. These again are our general departments over here. Entertainment would be up at the fairgrounds and Bowman Gray Stadium. And since natural gas is primarily buildings, recreation would be the community centers, a couple of maintenance buildings they have. Police would be public safety center, three district stations, a firing range, a evidence management facility. And since Gary's on here, I'm sliding him a little bit because they had some fire training at that same facility. But anyway, I just call it police. Fleet is our fleet building over on City Yard Drive. Wista is basically the bus station downtown and their maintenance and office facilities on Trade Street. Fire station, we have about roughly 20 fire stations. City Hall is the City Hall building only. Our City Hall South or Stewart building is all electric, so it does not use gas. The other buildings are typically like our Lowry Street building, the Union Station building, and our miscellaneous City Yard buildings. I'll take a second here to tell you we had a performance contract company come in a few years ago, and we took them to our best buildings. They brought us staff. We gave them plans. They went back to their office, and they did give us a report, but they called me about 2 days later, and they said, "Mr. Smith, we would love to look at your schools and your jails and your libraries and your social services facilities." And I said, the city of Winston-Salem does not have those. Those are all Forsyth County functions. So we basically have, fire, police, recreation, some of the specialty things, some general government buildings, and then a very large water and sewer department that's really managed by city county utilities. And one reason for that, and interestingly, city county utilities has been around for almost 50 years. And the reason for that is because they sell water, if you're thinking about water, throughout the county, including Kernersville, Clemens, Louisville, Rural Hall, Tobaccoville. They treat sewage for not only the county and these other towns, but they also treat sewage for Davie County, treat sewage for King. At one time, they used to sell a lot of water to Greensboro, and there have been other areas outside the county. But anyway, the gist of saying that is that taxpayer funds are not allowed to subsidize anything over on the utility side. Utility side, all of their expenses, all of their capital projects, they're basically paid for by your water bills and whatever you pay for the, we'll call them the tipping fees at the landfills. There's a construction landfill. And again, if it's takes place on the utility side of the business, if you will, it has to come out of their funds, and all that's approved by the City County Utility Commission.
And we should be clear, I mean, their funds are not paid by taxes, but paid by
They're
user
paid by rates.
services. Yeah,
Rates.
by us as well.
So,
Right.
so
Lindsay, since we went a little long on the first half,
sure.
do you have like just like instead of split out by type
What
of
that?
energy, just like the overall city? I mostly want to get to this idea of like several years ago, we chatted about this reality that like water pumping was like
Sure.
60% of city's energy usage. Another 15 or 20% was the street lights, which are getting changed over to LEDs, for example. Like
Yeah.
get
Yeah.
that very macroscopic picture for everyone a little bit.
What time do you want me to be done?
53.
Okay.
6
All right.
minutes.
Well,
And
real
I'm
quick.
sorry, Mr. Smith, to jump on that, I was hoping you could quickly also talk on the how much energy has been used and how since the last 5 years, that was presented to reduce the energy use to try to get to carbon neutral and how much that has been reduced in the past few years. I
All
think
right.
the last time our report was 2008. So if you could speak on that as well.
Okay. The all this is the biosolids dryer. And one reason I'm going to stick on that a second, it's been out of service for a while. So what happens is they have to load up all the sludge on trucks and haul it to the landfill 3 or 4 times a day. So while the biosolids dryer does use a lot of natural gas, it is used to avoid some other negatives. At the Muddy Creek plant, they do generate some electricity, about 7 million gallons a day. And only because I'm on that, up at the landfill, we have a contractor that's been there for 25 years. They make 30 million kilowatt hours a year of electricity to sell to Duke Energy. So they're using the digester gas. But I also comment about this because people oftentimes ask, can we put solar PV panels up at the landfill? And the answer is, we can look into it, but probably not because they are utilizing all capacity that Duke has up there. This is a little chart that sort of leans toward what Carter was asking. Back in 2008, we were using right around 120 million kilowatt hours of electricity. We moved down to say 2021, we're still right in that neighborhood of 120 million kilowatt hours of electricity. Some of the changes you see in here, they may be as simple as we sold the Joel Coliseum, we've sold several parking decks. Some of the increases might be some facilities we've added. Not necessarily, large decreases, but I will say some things that are not in here, even though we own the Benton Convention Center, a contractor's responsible for all of the bills. We do not count Benton Convention Center or the Truist Baseball Stadium in any of our greenhouse gas emissions. Interestingly, we went about 10 or 12 years where electric costs were very stable. And these are actually out of our accounting records. And since Duke's multi-year rate plan and some other things, electric costs have gone up rapidly, about 20% in 1 year, about another 20% expected. We are going to be at 50% increase in our electric cost, mainly due to their rates. This is our electric energy. I have to apologize to Carter. I did use the 2023 data, partly because I had some stuff already available. But realistically, as you can see from the last chart, electrically, a lot of things, have been fairly consistent. But again, what this kind of shows is that utilities is 63% of all the electric use. Consequently, there's 63% of all the greenhouse gas emissions due to electricity. Again, these are some of the same departments that we saw before, even some similar numbers. The big difference is streetlights. We do pay Duke Energy for about 33,000 streetlights. They were pretty much all high pressure sodium. They started putting in LEDs a few years ago. They don't upgrade from high pressure sodium to LEDs unless we pay them to do so. So we are in the process of paying a little over $900,000 for them to upgrade all their streetlights. Now, this is a chart of just the electricity that's we purchased from Duke without including utilities. Again, you can easily see streetlights 48%, but when we what we're expecting, let me see. I thought again, I'm rolling my mouse, and for some reason I don't see the screen for it on here, but well, we'll try that. That seems to work. But anyway, this is supposed to represent, this is what's going to happen after all the streetlights are upgraded to LEDs. We'll eliminate 10 million kilowatt hours a year of electricity, which is 20, we'll say 25% of all the electricity used by the non-utilities use for the city. So yes, and again, round numbers, just say paying $1 million, we are going to significantly decrease our kilowatt hour purchases, which significantly decreases our greenhouse gas emissions. Like I said, it's close to 25% for all non-utilities use, but it's also 10% of the city's entire greenhouse gas emissions, the electric purchases. And then we will get some savings from that. At worst, it would be a break-even proposition, but at best, there is a tax credit in there that expires next year. And if it stays, you know, we'll actually get, well, actually, we will save a fair amount when that tax credit expires. It's a little difficult to explain, but you know, we'll have to see what happens with the with new tax policy and how that affects our streetlight cost. But it is likely it will affect actual electric cost based on what happened a few years ago. One thing we did, some of you seen, you're familiar with, we put a solar PV system on the Stewart building. It's been in service a little over a year. It did not produce quite as much as I would have liked in the first year, but one thing I do like to touch on is Duke has gone to all time of use rates if you have solar PV. So I won't talk long, but right at the heart of noon, we only pay during the winter, well, 7 winter months, we'll call them, like a little over 3 cents a kilowatt hour. During the summer, only 4 cents kilowatt hour. During the peak periods after 6 p.m. and before 9 a.m. in the winter, it is 10 cents kilowatt hour. But I only throw that out because sometimes for some commercial customers, they don't say, you know, they're not always saving 10 or 15 cents kilowatt hour. It does decrease.
Lindsay, Lindsay, can I stop you just so we can get to a few other things?
All right, let me show you this real quick. These are 2 fire stations. We have received bids. We are going to add solar PV systems on the 2 fire stations. We do have some other buildings that, you know, will be part of the solar study. One of the little things, I was going to put them up there, all of them tend to have old roofs. People do ask about the Lowry Street building because it's a huge building. It's plenty large, but we only use about 100 to 125 kW in that building. So that's the most that we can install as solar PV. So anyway.
Sure. Yeah, I really appreciate all of that, Lindsay. It's sort of nice to sort of get in the weeds a little bit and see. So my understanding from talking to Shailene, Lindsay mentions this up front, but I think 1 or 2 other fire stations are in the process of hopefully getting, or maybe it's those ones you were just showing. I'm not sure.
Just those 2. Those
are
the 2 that will we'll be issuing something
Gotcha. Okay.
next.
But if we just go, if I just sort of share quickly on the strategic energy plan, I mean, anyone who's familiar with this type of work largely understands what Shailene and the sustainability department, including Lindsay, have proposed. It's maximizing efficiency of fleets and buildings and operations. There's a lot of logistical barriers to that I think we could honestly push on. Something that I've thought a lot about. There's obviously the second major theme of that document is expanding renewable. Lindsay was just talking about some solar. There's going to be some feasibility studies in this next year. The third is about vehicles, conversion to, as again, many of you probably know, there's sort of the city, as Lindsay mentioned up front, the city has the option for any new vehicle purchases to consider hybrid, but in my mind, that's not quite far enough of what we're talking about. I mean, to consider hybrid almost as a default at this point, to buy hybrid as a default, I should say, buying electric everywhere that's possible. Of course, that also comes with money for charging stations, which Shailene has done a good job of getting those in as well. And then lastly is trying to get some funding and partnerships for this stuff. So I just want to highlight that energy plan. And again, the reason that I wanted Lindsay to touch on this a little bit is on this committee, we haven't talked a lot about energy, especially since some of the newer people have been on it, mostly because Lindsay and Shailene have sort of been developing that plan over the last year, trying to talk with different departments and things like that. And so I do think over the coming months, we're at a point where energy is going to become a bit more important to talk about for our committee. Just because now that the plan's out, the new budget, as we've just discussed, which cuts a lot of the opportunities for this, I think that there's a lot of potential places where we could leverage information for that.
Yeah, and just to piggyback on that, Carter, I think this would be a really important point, discussing energy in your emails to City Council if you haven't yet. I mean, this isn't just an environmental issue, it's a fiscal one. Investments in sustainability can pay for themselves. So if we have more money in the budget with sustainability for the capital budget, then we can be more energy efficient with lighting, electric vehicles, smart upgrades to reduce long-term costs. I mean, I think there's a lot of room for decrease of electricity use, and I think that would be something that would be important for our committee to advocate for. We were also wondering, Mr. Smith, if you could share that deck with us so we can review it more closely, please.
Sure.
Awesome.
Thank you.
Okay, so I know we're at 5:59. We're doing all right though. So for you, Tara, just in general, at the end, we open it up to any community updates that might be relevant for other people in this committee to hear about. I have two things I want to bring up. One I mentioned earlier, council. So at least one or two council members have sort of expressed the desire for sustainability to be more present to council in a sense, not just in this moment of public comment, but sort of pervasive to sort of remind them. And so I've been thinking a lot about how to build capacity around that. So many of you know Matt Mayers. Let me just say for a moment, he's at all the meetings, but he's just the only face of the topic. And it seems like both with collaboration with others locally and otherwise, I've been thinking about how we can help facilitate some of that presence and that connection between council members and the community around the topic. And so for now, I just want to put that in your ear that that's something I'm going to push. Maybe it'll be a more prioritized topic next meeting. The second thing I want to put on your agenda is several of you were at the meetup with the Greensboro Community Sustainability Committee. When was that? January, I think it was. We had talked back then about having another meeting in the summer, and I've been in touch with their chair, Connor, who again, those of you who are there would have met. The idea is that sometime in the next 2 months, whoever was available to go would travel to Greensboro this time, since they came to us last time, at some time to meet, share what we've been working on. Maybe there's some shared ideas or learn lessons, build some relationships as well. You would also meet Shri, who's their head of sustainability as well. For now, what I want to ask is, my proposal to Connor is that this time just logistically makes sense, meaning Thursday nights. Is there anyone who has an issue with Thursday evening between say 5 and 7, 5 and 8 with what I'm suggesting? I know not everyone's going to be able to come, but like if we can at least get a handful of people, that'd be great. Is there anyone who thinks that another time or day would be better? Or how about this? Since we're already at 6:01, why don't, if anyone has any comments or ideas about the timing of that, let me know in the next few days, because Connor and I are going to try and shore up a day and a time in the next week or so. Sound good? All right, the last thing is the next meeting officially is on July 3rd, which is the day before 4th of July. Similarly to the last point, since we're sort of at time, if anyone, I think Shailene and I were on the fence about having a meeting then, and especially since it's summertime and it's the 3rd of July, maybe canceling that meeting and sort of replacing it with this Greensboro meetup time. And so if anyone has any thoughts or opinions about that, let me know. But otherwise, my proposal would be that our next meeting won't be July 3rd, but would be August 7th. If anyone has any comments about either of those points, I'll open the floor for a minute or two now, or a few seconds.
I guess I'm just kind of thinking, would, especially if we're because I don't know about logistics and stuff, but if we're doing the meetup with Greensboro City Council, would we want to have like the vice chair in place before that meeting? And what, like, I guess that's to the liberty of the council, or what we want to do as far as the committee in regards to that.
I guess it
That's a
also
fair
depends
question.
if I get replaced or not, because I don't mind
Oh,
staying on
correct.
until there's someone else, because I think I'm not really allowed to roll off until they appoint someone new.
Okay.
Yeah, that's a fair point, Christy. I like the idea, Jose. For those that were at the last meeting, it actually is what it's like a hangout more than it
Yeah,
is.
it's very chill.
I mean, yeah, it's a meeting, but it's like just like we sort of did like a round table in a sense and had a lot of chats and things like that. So I don't think it really matters if we formally have a vice chair or not there. So I'm not
Okay.
too worried about that. Yeah. Well, how about this? Somebody shoot Shailene or I a message about either of those points. And again, I know we're a little over time, but about either the meetup or ideas about the next meeting. Maybe I can even send out something, but send us some messages. Otherwise, you'll hear from us about timing for both of those things in the next, yeah, before the end of this month, probably. So anyway. All right, I'm going to adjourn us. Is there a motion? Well, is there a motion to adjourn the meeting?
Motion to adjourn the meeting.
Jose motions. Is there a second?
Second.
Somebody seconded. I couldn't tell who that was.
Christy.
Christy
C.
seconded. Christy Campbell seconded. All right. The meeting, everyone approves? Anyone against? Great. We're adjourning the meeting. Thank you all for coming. Tara, it's great for you to be here for your first meeting. Lindsay, I really appreciate you taking the time to staff the meeting and share your information with us. And otherwise, yeah, we'll be in touch and hear about anything in the next few weeks. Emily and Jose, you'll send us, I'll reach back out about what we might be thinking about that, and we'll talk about vice chairs at the next meeting. So thank you all again.
Sounds good.
Nice to
Thanks,
see everyone.
guys.
All right.
Bye.
Bye, everyone.